A Monday morning affair here on Bird 365. McMullen and McDonald with you. We're bringing in the third of a three-pronged Mac attack for you this morning. Joining us now is my former partner, the host of the Eagles pregame show on the Eagles Radio Network, and my good buddy, Glen Macnow, who I can tell is in Cape Cod. Number one, he told me. And number two, he's already got the tan working. How did you get so tan so fast, Macnow?
I have no idea because I got here last night. So, you know, a little early, but it's great. I'm going to be here for a couple of days, enjoy myself. Nice to talk to you, Jody and John.
Good to see you, Glenn. Yeah, I mean, that's good lighting, but that's an attractive man. There's only so much you can work with here. I do want to, I feel, kind of, I'm not quite as good Mac and Mac as the original Mac and Mac. Nobody ever will be. But, I want to start with you guys and your history together. Some of your best moments, some of your funniest moments. Give me something related to that, Glenn.
We used to make bets. And we used to make bets on football games. And we used to make bets a lot on Eagles-Cowboys games. And I remember a couple specifically. Actually, one might have been a Phillies bet that I lost. For some reason, I lost more of these bets than I won. And there was a guy who made wigs in the city, toupees back then, before hair weaves were the thing. And I had to get and wear a wig for 2 days, 3 days, Jody?
It was at least two.
Yeah. It was pretty hard. It was pretty horrendous. There was another one that I lost, and we were doing the show at Pizzeria Uno's in King of Prussia. And after losing, I had to stand out in the median of Route 202.
Oh, that's dangerous right there.
Street until 10 people threw me from their cars, Eagles memorabilia, hats, shirts, whatever. So and it was cold. It was like 20 degrees. I'm standing out there in the freaking snow waiting for people to throw me stuff.
And, oh, by the way, Macnow was so popular. He was out there for about 45 seconds. The people were lining up to give him Eagles stuff so he could get back into Pizzeria Uno as soon as possible. I'll give it that he was in the middle of the road. I'll give it was dangerous. I'll give it was cold. He was out there for 45 seconds. So don't believe he was hard suffering. The Eagle fans bailed him out in a big way that day. Yes, I won more bets than he did on the Cowboys and Eagles, but I did lose one, and I had to wear a dress to the McDonald's over on the Berlin Circle. And, oh, by the way, I had to go to the ladies' big and tall shop because they don't make dresses in my size. I had to spend a decent amount of money to go get a cheapy dress to wear at McDonald's. So, yes, SmackDown won every once in a while, too. The thing I remember most is myself, Glenn, and our producer started what became Glenn's pick the winner every single week pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is, we did.
Yeah.
It was just the three of us. It was me, Glenn, and our producer. Now I'm forgetting his name. It was producer Sixers games after we left. Jamal. It was you, me, and Jamal on a week-in, week-out basis. And we'd turn it over like 6 times during the season because two of the three of us would lose. The one guy would collect the money. All right, let's start again. And we go through it like 6 times in the course of a season. Now Glenn's got 15, 20,000, 25,000 people who enter his contest on WIP. Started with 3 idiots in studio.
How many people you got for that, Glenn?
Pardon me?
How many people do you have for that now? Do you set a record like every year?
Well, it did. The pandemic hurt last year, but before that, the most I ever got was 24,000, which is pretty good sized contest. You bet. I just want to mention one other moment because this one was pretty historic, and it's another Pizzeria Uno moment. Jody and I are doing the show there on a Tuesday, and we get a call. By the way, no cell phones then, right? So our producer gets a call, relays it to us, and it says, "Hey, a guy who claims to be Ricky Waters' agent's on the phone," and he says Ricky was a free agent. Says he wants to play for the Eagles and he wants to come out and sit with you guys and explain it. And we had heard nothing about this. We were really skeptical, but we said, sure. And then half hour later into Pizzeria Uno walks Ricky Waters, who sits down at the table with us and says, I want the Eagles to sign me. So Jody and I take credit for those 3 years. Jody's mostly responsible for what, but I get
I think Macnow was more pro Ricky Waters than I am, but that's beside the point. That's funny. That is the second most memorable moment for us at Pizzeria Uno. And I'm not talking about you out on the medium. You know what came down while we were at Uno's one day?
Sure
the OJ verdict.
Oh.
Came down while Glenn and I were on the air at Pizzeria Uno. So we got to do a show. Meanwhile, all we want to do is watch the TV and hear everything that's said and the decision. And we couldn't do it because we were on the air at that time. So we had to kind of piecemeal it. But I will never forget that I was hanging with my buddy Glen Macnow when O.J. Simpson was found not guilty. All right, sure. Mac, great walk down memory lane. We did get John to talk about the Eagles and the upcoming season 2021. We all made it to a tough season last year. What are you hanging your hat on as of right now to be most upbeat about, optimistic about? We're not going crazy, Jason Kelce back in a mummer's outfit, but what are you hanging your hat on right now that it's going to be better this year than last?
I think the defense is going to be better. I'm excited about a new defensive coordinator. I thought some of their signings, they're not glamorous. I think Ryan Kerrigan's a good sign. I think Eric Wilson at middle linebacker. I mean, they didn't have a middle linebacker last year. Now they have one. I think Anthony Harris at safety. Gannon is a disciple of Mike Zimmer. And I think the defense is going to be better. Not elite, but better. And I'm gonna hang my hat that that's going to help them win a couple of games.
Glenn, you threw out an interesting tweet over the weekend. It kind of piqued my interest. So I'm going to pull it up real quick. So you put from April 16 to June 17, Philadelphia's 4 teams drafted Carson Wentz, Mickey Moniak, Nolan Patrick, and Markelle Fultz with the first or second overall picks. There's a lesson in there somewhere. This is Glenn. But I don't know what it is. Have you found out what it is over the past 24, 36 hours?
I think the lesson is that having great talent as an 18, 19, 20-year-old does not necessarily translate into meaning you're going to have a great pro career. And in some of those cases, you got to judge character. I think with Fultz, Fultz had one great year on a really bad NCAA team out in Washington, and people thought, okay, well, that's enough. I think with Nolan Patrick, there were immaturity and character issues that maybe they couldn't read at the time. You know, it's tough to read somebody who's that age and say, okay, he's going to mature into this. Patrick never did. Moniak, I think it's a separate issue. I think he just, although he's coming on now, I know down in AAA, he's on a real good streak, but he's never grown into the body of a major league player. I don't know how you project that. And Wentz is a whole different story because Wentz came here and Wentz was great for a while and Wentz just, went south. So the lesson is, I mean, it's a dumb lesson, but the lesson is that it's really hard to say this guy's a terrific player at 19. He's going to be a franchise guy for us.
The lesson is there's no locks in sports. There's no givens, no matter how high you are drafted. I want to double down on Carson because he is the most recent guy to go elsewhere. Well, no, Patrick actually was last night. But we moved on from Carson Wentz. Good luck to him with Frank Reich. Frank wants him. Frank thinks he can get him turned around. So be it. I did a complete 180 on Carson Wentz. I was a huge fan. I was a defender early last year when people were ripping him, and I'm going, you do remember this guy was in the lead for the MVP just a couple of years ago. He never got it turned around. And then he did a, for me, kind of unforgivable thing of demanding to get out of town because he was benched, because he was the worst quarterback in the National Football League. Suck it up. They gave you a longer leash to work with than I actually thought he deserved. They don't play the Colts this year. If they did, how would Carson Wentz be handled when he came back here to Philadelphia?
Oh, he would be booed as big as anybody was ever booed. And it is so unfortunate because he was everything you said. He was the guy who was going to win the MVP in 2017. They're not getting to the Super Bowl without what he gave him before his injury. And I think people understate what he did after that. I mean, I think in 2018, 2019, he was good. I mean, he was a top-flight quarterback in the NFL. I was stunned and shocked, Jody and John, when he went south as he did, because I always thought he was a mature, level-headed kid. And once they drafted Hurts, he just went into the tank, and it got worse and it got worse. He bailed on the team. He basically skulked out of town. And as a guy who was one of my favorites, I was thoroughly disappointed. So while as a member of the media, I would not boo, I might go like this a little bit, you know. It would not, and I'm not a big boo guy, you know that, Jody. But in this case, he earned every bad word he got.
Glenn, but the breakup is recent. So as time passes, did people come to the conclusion you just did? Look, it didn't last as long as we all hoped, but 1960. I mean, this guy was the biggest part. People don't realize how big a part he was to that Super Bowl 52 team. Do you think as time moves on and people get farther away from the ending, which was really bad, they'll recognize we just talked about those first number 1 and number 2 overall picks all around town. Ultimately, won't this guy be looked at as a success? Because the Eagles got a Super Bowl championship.
Are you talking about fans or analysts?
I'm talking about fans. Analysts, no. I think. No?
No, fans are going to hold a long grudge against him. You know, you divorced me. We may have had a good year or two, but you divorced me. I'll never forgive that. By the way, a guy 2 houses down just started doing a leaf blower. Are you hearing that? Because I can move if you need me.
No, we're good.
No, it's fine. Okay. It's fine.
Okay.
All right, pandemic. We're at the houses. We got everything. Hopefully,
okay, this guy brought out the leaf blower, and I just didn't want to do that. No,
I thought the leaves didn't fall in New England until September, October. What the hell's he doing? It's too early to have the leaf blower out.
Well, it's the patio. It's the stuff on his patio. I don't know. I can go holler at him if you want. Anyway, no, you left us. You quit on us. Maybe that was good, but no, I don't. Unfortunately, because it was a great year and it was a great brief shining moment, but fans will never ever forgive that.
They've turned the team over to Jalen Hurts, although they haven't officially. Nick Sirianni says every position is in competition. So maybe Joe Flacco's the starting quarterback. Don't think so. Jalen Hurts is going to take over his first full year as a starter at the Eagles. We got a pretty good preview of him last year and what's in his game, what's in his arsenal. They didn't win a lot of games. They won their biggest game of the year, the upset against New Orleans, but also went 1-3 during Hurts' starts. What about this kid did you see last year that you like? What is the biggest hurdle that he and the Eagles are going to have to get over once the Jalen Hurts era starts here in Philadelphia?
I like his leadership. I think he's going to be a guy that the other players will like and follow, and that's obviously a very important thing for a quarterback. I like his mobility, which you get a mobile quarterback, that's very helpful. I have questions about his accuracy and his arm, and if you're going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league, you better be an accurate quarterback. And, he's a rookie, so I don't want to put too much stock in that, but that would be my biggest concern. And I don't know how a quarterback gains arm strength. Normally you are what you are at 22, 23, so that's my biggest concern.
So with those concerns, Glenn, what do you think the ceiling is for this team? And more importantly, the ceiling for Jalen Hurts, because he's got a very narrow path. He's got one season to prove that he could be the future for the Philadelphia Eagles. And, oh, by the way, you have the Deshaun Watson potential hanging above you. What can Jalen Hurts do to seize the mantle of this team as sort of the face of the franchise on the field?
He can keep the job. I mean, the ceiling for the team, and I'm not predicting this is going to be their record, but if everything goes right and they don't have a lot of injuries, and maybe other teams in the division do have injuries and they avoid mistakes, to me, the ceiling's 9-7, and that's not a record I expect them to get to, but you ask ceiling. What he can do to keep the job is avoid turnovers, make those critical third downs with, a 3rd and 8 out pass or with his feet, be a winner. I mean, he's not the same player as Nick Foles, but Nick Foles won a lot of games for the Eagles through grit and guile and things like that. And I think if Jalen Hurts can do that, where we don't really notice that he can't throw the 25-yard out, then I think he can keep the job.
And you are correct when you say a quarterback who can make plays with his legs can be helpful. can it be too much? We had Michael Vick here. He wasn't the same runner than he was when he was with the Falcons, but still a guy who could take off and made you plays. You and I started together with Randall Cunningham as the quarterback of the Eagles, who could absolutely make plays with his legs. Some Philadelphia fans like that. Others don't. You got to be able to stay in the pocket and make plays. We talked about Carson Wentz and how he was handled by Philadelphia Eagle fans and would be handled in the future if he comes back to town. How do you think the fans will handle Jalen Hurts? He rips off a couple 25, 30-yard highlight-type plays, but like you pointed out, his accuracy is below 60%, which isn't good enough. How are the fans going to take to Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback?
Well, short term, so short term, which would be, I'm talking about 2021, I think it's all going to be on if they win games. If they won 4 games last year, and people didn't get to go down to the stadium, but they watched those games, and they were miserable affairs. That was a bad, uninspired team. If he brings pep and excitement and so on, and they win a game, they beat the Cowboys 24-21, and he runs for a touchdown or two, people will want to bronze those legs and put them on the mantle.
Speaking of
long term,
no.
It's not good. Long term, he's going to have to throw the ball well. Short term, I think people here just want to win a few games.
You mentioned pep and excitement, Glenn. I can't believe it's taken me this long to get to the head coach of this team. And your thoughts on Nick Sirianni? I mean, one thing he brings is pep, excitement, energy. Every player I've talked to talks about that. However, we talked about the ceiling of this team. If this team doesn't win a lot of games, how was that portrayed by the fan base to have this guy out there so enthusiastic, so rah-rah? Does that kind of turn in a negative direction?
Yeah, if you don't win. I mean, if they win, rock, scissors, paper will become a WIP promotion, right?
Yeah.
If they don't win, he's going to be a joke. I'll say 2 things about this. I've been wrong on this stuff before. I mean, Jody and I were on the air together for the initial Andy Reid news conference, and we heard him hem and haw through a series of questions and say nothing and offer nothing. And we came back afterward and said, this guy's never going to last in this town. Boy, were we wrong 14 years worth. And it's not the only time I've been wrong like that. I just think, we draw these initial impressions. Sirianni's first news conference was a disaster. I don't know if he can coach. We don't know if he can coach. He doesn't bring in the credentials of a Chip Kelly. He brings in more of the credentials of an Andy Reid. So we'll find out. The other aspect, this is the thing that worries me the most, actually, and it's not Sirianni, it's the people around him. He's got a very young coaching staff. I mean, you look at his coordinators, his special teams guy, his position coaches, they're in their 30s. Some of them are in their 20s. Now, that's not a bad thing to me as a mix. But what I don't see there is that older guru, Jim Johnson, the guy who can say, hey, when they're all sitting around thinking they're smarter than the world, there's got to be the experienced guy in the room that says, hey, fellas, I've been around the NFL for 20 years, and here's how this works. And I don't know who that voice is, and I wish they had sprinkled in a few more experienced guys in the coaching staff, because that stuff could become meaningful over time.
J-Mac says that almost on a daily basis here on the show. Where is the veteran hand, the leadership of this team? So you guys are on the same page on that one. All right, I'm going to take you to the Sirianni walk, maybe a little different than most. Eagles this year open up against Atlanta, home San Francisco, at Dallas. Week 4, that Reid guy coming back to town, who, yes, I remember sitting with you during the Andy Reid introductory press conference. I think I turned to you and said, I was much more motivated by Ray Rhodes than I was Andy Reid. Not good, McDonald. But Andy Reid has had the career he's had, and he's a championship coach. Let's say the Eagles are 1-2. Maybe they even beat the Cowboys the week before, but they're 1-2 in week number 4. There's 45 seconds to play in the game. They're out of field goal range. It's 4th and 10, and the new coach decides to punt. And he plays for overtime rather than going for it. The previous coach did that, and my God, he got killed in it. How dare you play for a tie? That could have been the beginning of the end for Doug Peterson. It is in some people's minds. Let's say that's the beginning of Nick Sirianni. That, yeah, overmatched. Patrick Mahomes on the other side. Discretion is the better part of valor. He plays for a tie rather than goes for a win. How's that going to go over with Eagles Nation?
Well, you kind of set it up there to where I think it's a different situation, which is he's playing the Chiefs. Doug was against the Bengals?
Yes.
Right? Wasn't it against Cincinnati when Doug did that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Bengals stunk, always do. And the Eagles were at one point, not then, but at one point they were a Super Bowl team. They should have won that game against Andy Reid. Let me put it this way. If the Eagles are tied against Andy Reid in the fourth quarter, I'm going to give Nick Sirianni a standing ovation because I expect they're going to be losing that game by about 24 at that point. So if they're that close, I'll give him all the latitude he needs.
Now, this is interesting because I want to bring up Jeffrey Lurie in this instance. As Jody pointed out, Glenn, I'm with you. When it comes to the veteran sounding board, you mentioned Jim Johnson. Doug Peterson was a first-time head coach. He had Jim Schwartz. They gave Sean McVay Wade Phillips. It's sort of like a template around the league. The Eagles haven't done that. Kevin Patullo, who is Nick Sirianni's right-hand man, did Jeffrey Lurie do this on purpose? So is Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman running this show? We had Jason Cole on who said they're going to run over this guy. Speaking of Nick Sirianni. Is he overstating that? Do you get that feeling?
John, I've heard that narrative, and I dispute that narrative. And the reason I dispute it is because Lurie's track record with head coaches is very good. Every head coach he's ever hired has made the playoffs. Ray Rhodes was coach of the year his first year here. Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame coach in the end. Chip Kelly went south, but the first year he was here, that team was really good, and they made the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. So given Lurie's track record on coaches, I am not going to question until I really see the results. I will give Lurie the benefit of the doubt. Is he exerting a little more influence on a rookie coach than he would on a veteran? Well, he kind of learned his lesson with Chip Kelly when Chip kicked him out of the room. But I don't think Lurie wants to micromanage the coach.
All right, G-Mac, I need your take on a guy who is going to be a focus on the Eagles this year, and he should be. I'm a mega Devonta Smith fan. I was before he ever was selected by the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, when he was in Alabama, I thought he was the best wide receiver they had, and I was shocked that he went back to school for another year. I thought he should have been drafted before either of the other two wide receivers who went into the draft and were picked in the first 15 picks of the draft. So I've been a fan of this kid for 3 years now. I think he's going to be great here in Philadelphia. I know some people question the fact that he's got skinny legs, but those skinny legs didn't keep him from winning a Heisman Trophy last year with an unbelievable production record. How high is high? How fast can this kid come out of the gate? I know it all depends on the quarterback being able to get him the ball. We just said we hope Jalen Hurts is accurate, but we don't know. How good can this kid be from day one?
I put an over-under on it when I was working with Ray. Actually, I did a show with John Ritchie, last week at 94 WIP. And I put the over-under, and I'm sticking with this for now because I think it's realistic. 65 catches, 900 yards as a rookie, 6 or 7 touchdowns. And you know what? That would be just a fine rookie year. We've seen a couple of rookies come out in the last years, set the league on fire. Arguably the best wide receiver in football last year was a rookie. But I don't expect that. And as you said, Jody, he's playing he's not playing with Tom Brady or Drew Brees. He's playing with a young quarterback. I hope the line stays healthy. If he ends up with 65 catches and 900 yards, we should all be delighted because it foretells a great future. By the way, Mike Quick caught 8 passes as a rookie.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And the Eagles, by the way, Glenn, have not had a receiver with over 600 yards for 2 consecutive seasons in this era of football. Right. So 900 would look pretty damn good for Devonta Smith. I agree with you.
But
besides Smith, because I think I'm with Jody, I think he's a very good player. I want to pick your brain to find a breakout player, maybe on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, somebody who you expect to take a step forward? Because I think one of the problems with the Doug Peterson era the last couple of years has been the lack of developing players. Anybody you think is ready to step up and make a leap in production?
On offense, I think Jordan Mailata is going to win the left tackle job, and I think he's going to be really good. The coach says everything's an open competition. He's not married to Andre Dillard. He didn't draft Andre Dillard. If Andre Dillard doesn't play like a first rounder, that's really no knock on Sirianni. I thought toward the end of last season, Mailata really got it, and given a full year in training camp and health, I think Jordan Mailata is going to be a standout left tackle. So I'm going there. Defense is tougher because they're all old. Maybe Josh Sweat, but that's in lack of having another great name at my disposal. There's not a lot of great young players on that, or rising young players on that defense that I could give you. I think, as I said, Wilson, the new middle linebacker, is going to be very, very good, but he's not a young emerging player. So without a better name, I'll go with Sweat.
Glenn, three things we talk about almost every. Three things we talk about almost every day on the show. Number one, when are they going to get another starting cornerback on the free agent market? Still hasn't happened. Running joke between me and John. Why Landon Dickerson isn't signed yet? John, Jody, it's going to happen. Shut up. Every day tells me leave the Dickerson thing out.
Jody, it's going to happen. Shut up.
Yeah, I know. Another Mac now. Another Mac give me a hard time. When he signs, I'll believe it. Until then, it's an issue. And the other thing would beat to death
Where's he going? It's not like he's going to go. Jody, it's not like he's going to go play in Canada. He'll sign.
He may wait till into camp and then not be ready when they call on him. I can paint a picture if you need me to, but I won't even go there. And Zach Ertz is still here. And we keep waiting for something to happen with Zach Ertz, and it doesn't happen. And I want to get your take on this because you're a level-headed guy when it comes to this sort of stuff. So from time to time, I'll get calls on WIP. We'll get comments on the stream. I'll get tweets. The Eagles owe Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz gave them his body and soul and played injured and caught the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. I know it's harsh, and I know it's kind of cutthroat, but the players don't own the team, and the team doesn't owe the players. I'm sorry, I just don't buy into the narrative of the team owes it to Zach Ertz. The only reason why I think they're holding on to him is they think gets him in a trade, and the reason why I think it could blow up in their face is because you're going to have a little disrest in the locker room. But I don't think the Eagles owe Zach Ertz anything. Am I a cold-hearted creep, or do I have a good football business aspect of view of this? Do the Eagles owe Zach Ertz if they can't get anything in the trade for him to cut him now?
Yeah. I think you got a little bit of creep in you.
Okay. Yeah. Nothing new.
Because I think it's in the middle like that. I think that holding on. No, here's what I think. Here's what holding on to a period of time to see if something would shake out was a good idea. It didn't have nobody bit. Eventually, you're not going to keep their belief is maybe they go to training camp and another team has a serious injury and therefore they get somebody and it's going to work out. That happens one out of every 25 times. At this point,
no, I think we're losing Glenn.
I think the leaf blower is affecting Glenn.
Oh, the knucklehead neighbor with the leaf blower.
I wanted to get, hopefully Glenn will come back. I wanted to get his favorite Eagles guest on Tell Us Our Story that he does with Ray, which is such a great segment. But I don't.
Yeah, we lost the back man. That's one of the things we deal with here on Birds 365. Every once in a while, you get somebody whose Wi-Fi isn't quite up to snuff. When I reached out to Glenn, he said, love to do it. I'm going to be on Cape Cod. So what my first question was, how's your Wi-Fi up there? And he said, I think it's pretty good. Should be able to hop aboard with you guys.
It was a solid segment till the leaf blower took over. You know the effect of leaf blowers.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I'm saying now you can't be on a better place on the planet to watch the leaves turn. Cape Cod, New England. It doesn't get any better than that. That's friggin' October. What the hell got a leaf blower out for in July?
A little early. I respect that though. You gotta clean your porch, your deck. You gotta get the leaf blower out, Jody. I respect that. Even in July, you gotta do it.
No respect whatsoever. Let somebody else do it. If you're gonna bother your neighbors, pay somebody else to do it. Don't you get out there and do it, which may have been the case. We don't really know for sure. Anyway, we thank our buddy Glen Macnow for hopping on board with us. We'll punch him up periodically during the year because, he's my friend. And if I ask him to do it, he'd better do it. Otherwise, he's going to have an issue with me.
Well, he's going to call you a creep again. A little creep. By the way, I was going to say you're both a creep and a good business person. From a business standpoint, you're playing bad cop, is how he says. But, it's a little creepish.
Yeah. Hey, when you need to be a creep, I can fill the void. If the role that I have to play, kind of like Roman Reigns being a heel, I think Roman's actually a really good guy, and I liked him better when he wasn't a heel.
But he's a great heel.
He is a great heel. I have to admit that he's a great heel, even though I don't like the fact that he's a great heel. If you got to play the heel every once in a while, you got to turn, you got to do what you got to do. Jody Mack can play creep when need be. All right, coming back. We'll get as creepy as possible. We'll lead up to hour number 2. We got a good guest, Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders, coming in hour number 2. Stick around with us right here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.